All right, everybody, let's do a little progress report on the Mavs. I've noticed when I do videos, I like to stand and I sway a lot, so I busted out the other mic, and this is my home, so you're caught up. Let's do a little progress report on the Mavs, a little check-in. Mavs have had a frustrating start to the season. I say frustrating, not disappointing. It would be disappointing if we didn't have some good wins under our belt, and for the fact that we're playing a lot better the last 4 or 5 games, minus that bad loss to Detroit, again on the road in overtime. Other than that, we've had 4 good wins out of the last 5 games. Beat the brakes off in New York, beat Denver, beat Phoenix, beat Golden State. So I think frustrating is the proper word. I think this is a good team. I honestly do. This team only needs 1 or 2 guys to step up or be decent shooters or make some shots, and we can beat anybody. There's no question about that, in my opinion. Mavs are 13-11. Right now we're sitting 7th in the West, 3rd in our division. We are 10-3 at home, so that's good. If we can somehow get home court advantage, which I think will be tough, I'm not exactly expecting that, but getting in the 5 or 6 seed would be nice, which I do think is possible. We're 3-8 on the road, not good. We are 8-5 in our conference. I think that's important, and this goes back to what I was talking about with key wins. We're 2-1 against Denver. We should have beaten Phoenix I believe it was the first game of the year. So we should be 2-0 on them. We beat Utah. I think we should have beaten New Orleans, even though they were a couple players short. So we have to keep that in mind. We beat Golden State. We have a win over the Clippers. Again, not with Kawhi Leonard, but I don't know how much of a factor Kawhi Leonard's going to be going forward. So let's maybe that was a good win. Maybe it wasn't. We'll see later on in the year. Beating Brooklyn was nice. Again, I don't think they're the best team, but I think, going to Brooklyn and beating them at home and on the road 2-0, I think is good with a player like Durant. It's at least something. We beat the brakes off of Memphis, the second game of the year. We have some tough lot. We had a little tough stretch there. We lost to Orlando, Washington, and Houston. 3 games in 3 out of 5 games for a 5-game stretch there. We beat Portland. Again, like I said, we're 2-1 against Denver. We beat Golden State. We should be 2-0 on Phoenix, in my opinion. We were up by 30 points twice in that game. Let's quickly talk about the Eastern games that we've lost that are important. Boston and Milwaukee, arguably the 2 best teams in the East, 2 of the best teams in the East. I think Milwaukee is a doable foe for us, just spitballing here. I think Boston's in another league. That's going to be a tough game. Their defense is one of the best. Their offense at times can click, and they can score with the best of them. Boston looks like, to me, probably the favorite out of the East, in my opinion. I think they have the best overall team. I think they showed it when we played them. They've been showing it all year. So I just wanted to talk about that for a second. And I mention that because we have Milwaukee coming up later tonight. I think this is an important game for us. I think this is a game where we get to prove to ourselves, are we close? Are we there? Are we better than we think? Or are we worse than we think? At a minimum, you're hoping for a tough game, even if we maybe lose. It is at home. Again, we're 10-3 at home, 8-5 in our conference. So I think we should win this game. I do. I think we should win this game. I think this is a good team. I really do. A lot of people have been complaining about the structure and the construction of the roster. we have one glaring weakness, in my opinion. That's another ball handler, another good, smart ball handler who can put the ball on the floor and score specifically. Um, that is really our glaring weakness, which is why I push so hard, or I hope we make a move at Kyrie Irving if it means trading a few bad contracts and a pick or something. But I think 1 through 8, 1 through 9, perhaps even 1 through 10 on this team, it is a good roster. Excuse me. It's a good roster. I think the Kemba Walker trade, we will see. I didn't really get off my seat or anything for that. In fact, I was kind of a fan of Campazzo. Guy had good energy off the bench. I think although he did not hit his open threes because teams didn't really respect him or know who he was, I think that would have come around. But one thing about Campazzo is he brought a lot of energy. You know, if you're a little guy like that in the NBA, the least you can do is come with some energy, right? And so we'll see what happens with Kemba Walker. You know, maybe he can give us a good 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, hit a 3 or 2, play OKD, be smart with the ball. That's really what we're going to need him to do if he's going to contribute at all. You would think that the Mavs would not have made that move unless there was something there. They did their proper scouting. You know, but for me right now, the fact that Campazzo could play, is ready to play, and Kemba Walker is not. You know, we'll see. It feels like a sidestep to me, which in my opinion, this is not a sidestep's not what we need to be doing right now. That being said, I want to roll over to Jaden Hardy for a second. A lot of Mavs fans have been calling for Jaden Hardy all year. He's been dominating the G League. He looked amazing the other night, and it was like 5 minutes of play, got, 10 points, something like that. Good defense, looked good out there, confident. I think that's the number one thing. He is a first-round draft pick. Kid talks about earning your minutes. I think he has done everything we have asked him to do. He seems to be a team player going down to the G League. I didn't hear any negative frustration with him. So, in terms of that one weakness that we have, it is time, in my opinion, to start bringing Jaden Hardy along. He needs to be getting minutes somehow every night, in my opinion. I think you keep him on the floor with Dinwiddie whenever they are out there, and Luka is not. I think when Luka goes to the bench is when Hardy needs to come in with Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie can be your main ball handler and or a release valve, a pressure release valve for Hardy. But I think Hardy's ready. I don't know really what else he has to do to prove it to you that he at least deserves some minutes. He at least deserves a chance. He's proven the G League is not good enough for him. He's NBA. He's better than the G League, right? He deserves a shot in the NBA to see what we have. And you're going to, the Mavs in terms of drafting minus, those top picks we've had like Dirk and Luka, and I know we did good with Brunson as well. There's always kind of been the knock that the front office doesn't really allow young guys to get much of an opportunity. We have such a need for Hardy's skill set right now. I think you have to start investing some minutes into this guy, letting him get some good looks, some good playing time, and let's see what we have here, right? And so, I like this team. I think this is a good team. I think we've shown, right? All it took was for Tim Hardaway to catch fire here the last 4 or 5 games, and look at our wins. Phoenix, Denver, Golden State. This team can play with anyone if 1 or 2 guys step up and hit shots. I'm loving Bullock coming off the bench. I'm a big Bullock supporter. I kind of maybe wanted to keep him in the starting lineup a little longer. And maybe not give him as many minutes as he was getting, but keep him in the starting lineup. It looks like I might be wrong on that. But again, Bullock coming off the bench, being the defender that he is, I think is very. I still think him and Finney-Smith are invaluable to this team for the defensive end and the defensive pressure and athleticism and defensive skills that they give you. And one thing about Bullock coming off the bench is, a lot of times if Luka sits out or we're playing up against that second group, putting someone in there like Bullock, who has played Western Conference Finals starting minutes last year and was a big workhorse for us in the playoffs, I think that's invaluable. He brings a bit of consistency and stability to that second group or when he comes off the bench. And you're talking about a guy, if he can just find his shot a little bit, he can be very, very clutch, very crucial coming off the bench. This team is deep, in my opinion. I think this team is deep. Again, we'll see what we have with Kemba. I wouldn't expect too much from him. If you're a Mavs fans, I would tamper down your expectations. If we can get a solid 5 to 10 minutes out of him, I'd be happy. I would, again, the reason why I seem kind of sour about the Kemba trade is Campazzo is high energy, so there's that, and he can play. He can play. He's healthy. And instead of giving someone like Campazzo or Kemba minutes or looking at them, I think that's something we should invest in Hardy. I think Hardy has earned his shot. He's earned his chance to play, 5-10 minutes a game. So that's the only reason I don't really like the Kemba Walker signing. That's just my 2 cents on that. Again, maybe if he proves me wrong, I'm more than happy to be proven wrong. So let's talk about the Mavs playing up and down this year, playing up and down to their competition. Some bad losses: Detroit overtime on the road, Houston at home, which just seemed like a weird game. They had like 16 blocks or something crazy like that. And Houston, although not good, horrible team, they're semi-competitive, right? Especially the last 10 games or so, they've been playing much better, playing some decent, consistent games. And again, I'm going to say it one more time, right? I would rather the Mavs play up and down to their competition than to be inconsistent, correct? And maybe someone would argue that we have been inconsistent. I would say we had a bit of a bad stretch there when we lost to Orlando and Washington. And we've also have lost some games late when we've had big leads. So there's that too. Got to keep that in mind. There in the beginning, we lost to OKC, New Orleans, and Phoenix. We really blew some big leads there, especially the Phoenix game. So I think our record is not indicative of how good we are. I think you can toss in a couple more wins. And again, those two of those losses, New Orleans and Phoenix, were on the road. And I know New Orleans didn't have Zion and one other player that I can't remember right now off the top of my head. And Phoenix was healthy at that point. Those are two games on the road that I think you could theoretically, I know you have to win in the box score, right? But theoretically, I think you could give the Mavs those wins if you're kind of looking in hindsight and seeing that we were really playing good, and then we kind of lost it there at the end. Again, in the beginning of the season, that's a little bit more forgivable. But again, in our conference, correct? In our conference, we are 8-5. I think that's big. I think that's important to remember. I think this Milwaukee game tonight is going to be very important. I think, again, like I said, this is going to be a who are you kind of game. Is the Mavs that we have seen of late, or is that who we have? Or is it going to be the Mavs who struggle on offense, who can't seem to produce, and give up a game late? Or is it the team we've seen of late with Tim Hardaway shooting well? Luka's Luka, right? beating Denver, Phoenix, and Golden State, I think is crucial. We're 2-1 against Denver. I think we should be 2-0 against Phoenix. We beat Utah when Utah was Utah. I think, again, if I'm looking at the standings, right, Utah is a half a game ahead of us. I think they are cooling off a little bit. They're 4-6 in their last 10. Just my opinion, I think they are going to sputter out a little bit. Their defense is not very good. They kind of have to outscore you. All the Mavs fans know what that's like, back in the day of the early Dirk days. Again, our defense, opponents' points per game, we are number 1 in the West right now at 108.7. I think that is important to remember. I think our away record, again, right now is 3-8. I think it should be more like 5-6, maybe even 6-5. Again, having a good defense travels. And our home record is 10-3. That is essentially among the best, minus Golden State and Phoenix, which is important to remember. And again, we should have beat Phoenix in Phoenix, so you can think about that a little bit too. We'll see what happens with Kawhi here against the Clippers. Of course, I wish Kawhi the best. Obviously, I think Kawhi, had he not gotten hurt, is one of the best two-way players. When he was clicking, that maybe we've ever seen for a stretch there. He was playing out of his mind. I'm a big fan of Kawhi, just in terms of the skill set and what he's done and what he is as a player individually. It's just something about him not coming back yet. I know he's starting to slowly creep back these last few games. Come playoff time, you can't rest a game, right? You can't play every other game. So we'll see what happens with him. Clippers are 9th right now. They're amazingly only a half game behind us. It feels like they're, under 500. They're sitting at 14-13. Utah and Sacramento are sitting a half game ahead of us. I think both of those teams are a little fool's gold. Again, 2 horrible defenses, or at least they give up a lot of points. I know they play a little bit of a faster pace. I don't think that translates very well over the course of a season and definitely in the playoffs. It would be nice if actually we could get matched up against one of those guys, to be honest with you. The Mavs are +3 in differential. That's good. If we were just going by differential, Mavs would be 4th in the West. So that's something to keep in mind. I think, people look at our points per game and it's kind of low, but that's because we play a little bit of a slower pace with Luka, and our defense also shows that as well. So Sacramento and Utah being a half game up, I do think they will start to skid here a little bit, and I think the Mavs are hitting their stride right now. And man, we really just need one more player to come along with Luka and Hardaway right now. Finney-Smith hit some big threes the other night. Maybe Finney's that guy. Dinwiddie's been playing pretty good last couple games. He's been a little below average for his season so far. But I'm all, I really hope Hardy. I think the reason why I'm calling for Hardy so much in this, the Mavs, this report card video, and he's only really played in one game, but even though he played amazingly, and I know they were garbage minutes, but Hardy has such a skill set that we are desperately needing right now. And, you drafted this guy at the end of the first round. He fits a need that we need really bad. His skill set fits it perfectly. He has everything we need right now. And, he has shown the G League is not enough for him. So I just want to reiterate Hardy one more time in terms of a report card and, the needs improvement part for Dallas and the weakness that I mentioned. I'm hoping he is a part of that needs improvement sort of thing. Again, what we've done really good defense. I still think, I've said it a lot, I think this is one of the best defenses in the league. Top 5, definitely top 10, no question about that. Again, we have a lot of length. Luka's defense, I've been talking about it. I haven't really heard anyone else talk about it. Luka's defense has been exponentially better. His foot movement, footwork, staying in front of his guy, getting his hands up, getting hands on balls, tipping balls, steals, getting in the passing lanes. He's made some great instinctual plays here and there on defense. Luka's defense is not getting talked about, and who knows, maybe as the season goes on and we get into a playoff situation, people try to take him one-on-one like Phoenix did, but I don't think we're going to let that happen again. That hopefully we learned our lesson, right? And so, I think people might point this out later on. I want to say it here first. Luka's defense has come a long way. Whatever he did in the offseason, whoever got with him, whatever training he was doing, it's paying off. It's showing. Let's get to the top of the West, top 4. You have Denver 4, Memphis 3, Phoenix 2, New Orleans 1. New Orleans is obviously the surprise team right now, and I'm not quite sure what to think of them. I feel like they're a little bit of fool's gold, but 16-8, you have to give it to them, right? You can't just say they're fool's gold, and they've been doing this largely with some injuries, mainly Zion, right? So I just think the Suns are a team that are just so well built for the regular season. I'm kind of thinking they overtake them. Memphis, I think, is going to slide a little bit. Again, they play such a sort of faster-paced game. And we have a better differential than the Grizzlies, as well as the Nuggets. The Nuggets only have a +1. We're a +3. The Nuggets, Jamal Murray coming back around a little bit. We'll see what happens with that. I think the Nuggets are about where they should be, 4 or 5. I think Sacramento and Utah fall a little bit. Golden State's going to make a run here, you would think. Portland and LA, I don't really see them making a long-term run. So if we're Dallas right now, we're trying to get to the 5-6. That's my report card expectation. Floor. That's the floor, if you ask me, is 7-6 area. I think we should be shooting for the 4 spot. I think that's really where we'd like to be, obviously. Home court advantage. But, I'm a believer in this team. I am definitely a tough critic. If people watch me, I'm not a big fan of Jason Kidd. That's probably the next thing we should touch on. I do it in my film room videos and on live streams. I am not a believer in Jason Kidd. I think mainly 2 things. A, everyone knows he's horrible with timeouts. I don't know what it is with him in timeouts, what the beef is there. He has diamond hands with timeouts. I don't get it. I will say this, though. The last couple games, I've noticed him call timeouts a little better, in better spots at better times, where I think in the past he would have not called a timeout. So there is that. But again, I'm not going to take a 2-game sample and forget about the last year and a half. And I'm going to say it again. So far I've been proven right. Kidd is a styles coach. Kidd is not an X's and O's kind of coach like Carlisle. There's not a lot to digest. There's not a lot going on, which you could see as a pro or a con. I don't really, a lot of times how I judge if a coach is like a good X's and O's coach is you will see certain set plays out of a timeout coming out of a quarter, right? Beginning of a quarter, making an adjustment, giving a new look, right? I don't see a whole lot of that from Kidd. Now, game to game, his adjustments are fine, but in the game when things happen, in my opinion, he does not make proper adjustments. He is not. I do this in the film room all the time. Teams are going to double team Luka all the time. That's just what they're going to do. It's the obvious thing to do. Kidd has not found out a way to use that to his advantage yet, in my opinion. I haven't seen it enough. I've seen it here and there. But Kidd on the offensive end, in my opinion, is just hoping Luka, that's something I say a lot, is just going to will us to a victory. In my opinion, in the playoffs last year, whenever we did win, Luka just willed us to a victory. It felt like, right? You had to hope guys hit threes, and maybe we got hot in the playoffs at the right time. Hopefully that comes back. But it seems like he is just wanting to put the ball in Luka's hands and is just hoping he's good enough to make it work. And Luka is so good that a lot of times he does. But when it comes, for example, when teams double team us a lot, right? I don't see an adjustment from Kid or this sort of thing, like a reaction of, here it is, here's the double team, right? Here's what we're going to do. We see this all the time. We're going to keep seeing it. He should have something ready to go by now. And I'm losing more faith in Kid more and more because I just don't see him playing through Luka or off Luka in the correct way that inspires some hope in me for the offense. There doesn't seem to be any particular responsibilities that players have in order to play off Luka, getting in spots, cutting to certain areas of the floor. Kid runs the pick and roll a lot, which is fine, right? I mean, this is the NBA. That's what a lot of people run. But there's nothing after that. There's no backdoor cuts. There's no off-ball movement. There's no runners on the baseline. There's no picking away, flashing to a spot. And if you watch my film room videos, we keep getting teams come with the double team and the hedging on Luka, and we're just hoping Luka makes a good pass, from the corner of the half court, up against the half court and the out of bounds line, and then we're just kind of hoping the other players come up with some kind of creativity or improvisation and that they make something happen, right? One thing, the weakness on this roster, top to bottom after Luka, I would say besides Dinwiddie, but even Dinwiddie, guys on this team are not good at creating their own shot, right? Now, Dinwiddie is good at the three-pointer and getting to the hole. Wood is good if he can get the ball on the block or shooting an open three. But other than that, and other than those guys doing those two things, they're very two-dimensional, both of them. It's either a three or we need to get Wood the ball around the basket, around the block, or Dinwiddie driving to the goal, minus them shooting threes, sorry. No one on this team is very good at creating anything for themselves. It's a lot of passing off Luka, and then they are putting the ball on the floor, and if it's not there, they're kicking out, and that's really all it is. We're just hoping someone comes up with something. They're trying to improvise on the fly, and we're getting stuck a lot. And this is what I mean by X's and O's. Kid is just a Styles hoping that, guys, just do, right? Just create, just make something happen. This is not that kind of roster, right? This is not like Jokic and Jamal Murray and Highland playing the pick and roll and running an offense through those guys, and everyone else is cutting and moving. This is not Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant being able to play off of each other and creating if one can't do it and just kind of hoping that works or making that work, right? This is not that kind of team. These guys need roles. These guys need to be in spots. These guys need to know what happens in certain situations. And this is where I just don't have a lot of faith in Kid that he's doing that. Like I said, in my opinion, he's kind of just telling Luka and these guys to just go play, right? I mean, that's fine to a degree, but, for example, in the double team, we get stuck a lot. We act like we're surprised to see it every game. There should be an immediate reaction when we see the double team at this point, and I just am not seeing it. And it seems like the best thing Kid can come up with is just running a double screen, or we're just going to get Luka and ISO extended block. It's kind of double speak. This team, in terms of the other players after Luka, are not necessarily good at creating shots. However, they are good at things. Everyone on this team has a decent skill set And I think everyone is great at one or two things, right? Minus creating their own shot, kind of putting the ball on the floor, 3, 4, 5 dribbles, pump faking, turning, spinning, hesitating, etc. We have a lot of setup, spot up shooters. Finney Smith, Reggie Bullock in particular. I think, Wood needs to get the ball around the block or shoot a three. Dinwiddie's probably the next best after Luka, which is easy, right? He can shoot a step back from time to time. He can shoot. He's been a great shooter so far this year. He's proven me wrong on that. I thought he was a little bit of a streaky shooter coming in from Washington. From what I could tell, he's really been more consistent than I remember or gave him credit for. Maxi's a spot up shooter, or perhaps Maxi's good off the ball. He does some other good things. He's a spot up shooter. Hardaway is another spot up shooter who can very rarely put the ball on the floor, maybe 1-2 dribbles and do something. This is what I mean, where Kidd needs to get these guys in spots on the offense, and that's part of my progress report for the Mavs, specifically talking about Jason Kidd. Is I don't like the offensive ball movement, the rotations, the sets that we're running. I just don't. That needs to improve. I don't know if he needs to give up the play calling or bring in somebody. I don't know how that works in the NBA per se, but this offense is seriously lacking some creativity, movement, and getting people in the right spot in positions and being ready to play off Luka. When you have a guy like Luka, it is such an advantage, right? It's like Dirk. Dirk's one of the biggest mismatches the NBA's ever seen. Carlisle knew how to play off of that, right? And a lot of people say, well, like, oh, it's easy. I've mentioned this before in other videos. Oh, well, it's easy. Just get Dirk the ball, and, that's why he was so good. No, not really. Like, guys were moving. Guys were doing other things. In the best example I can give, I'm uploading the film room right now for the Denver game. But Jokic, the other night when we were playing against him, Gordon feasted. Gordon had an amazing game, and it's because they would bring Jokic up, and what they were doing off of Jokic was getting Gordon a mismatch in the post. And little things like that we're not doing. We're just getting Luka the ball and hoping people can just come up with something if it's not there for Luka, correct? That's about as good of an example as I can give. Carlisle would get Dirk on the pin post, the free throw line, the elbow, and everybody knew what to do off of that. There were plays going on in the background. There were wrinkles happening around Dirk that we were doing. And that's what frustrates me, is that Kidd doesn't seem to be getting everyone else involved somehow, or making the defense pay when they pay so much attention to Luka. When Luka makes them do something, like if a team is going to double team you, you have won. Theoretically, you have already won. You're making them commit 2 defenders to 1 guy. You should be able to create something off of that and get guys in spots to get them set up to produce for your team and manufacture some offense. That's my biggest report card gripe on Kidd. And I'm hoping that's changing. I saw a little bit of this in the Detroit game when we broke down the overtime film. The way we did that against Detroit, we need to be doing more often, and Kidd got away from that against Denver. And so we'll see what happens going forward, but that's my report card for Jason Kidd. That was a little long-winded, but that's my report card for Jason Kidd. So I think this team is good enough. They're not the best. We're not bona fide contenders. I think we're in between. We're much better than a pretender, in my opinion. Luka and the way this team is set up, we're not pretenders. We're definitely contenders, but we are definitely on the fringe of a contender, if that can make sense. If there were 2 tiers, 2 contenders, we're definitely tier 2. And so that mainly wraps up my report card on the Mavs. We play up and down to our competition, which is not the same as being inconsistent. I'm not too worried about that because we have some good quality wins underneath our belt. We've been playing a lot better lately. A couple of those games early in the season, earlier in the season, definitely feel like we should have won. Tough loss there against Toronto, against Phoenix, against New Orleans. New Orleans and Phoenix were on the road. I think that's important to keep in mind. We have a good differential. If we were just going by differentials, again, we would be 4th in the West. So that's something to keep in mind. This defense is, right now, points per game is the best in the West. And I do think we have, I would say we have the best defense in the West, minus just the points per game, right? You know, so a lot of that can be maybe attributed to our pace, which is a fair critique. But I think, you know, guys like just the guys we have on our team, I think this is a good defense. And Luka being obviously our weakest defender, he's come a long way. And I'm going to call that before anyone else does. But again, Green, Bullock, Finney-Smith, those guys are good, I would say, prime-time wing defenders. Green's come a long way. Powell's a good defender. Dinwiddie's a good to decent defender. He's definitely quick. He can move with the best of them. So I think this defense is arguably the best in the West. If not, definitely top 2 or 3. You know, I think this game against Milwaukee tonight is going to be a really good litmus test for this team. And I expect us to win. I honestly do. We're 10-3 at home. I think we get this one. And if we do lose, we better keep it competitive. You know, I don't want to, if we get blown out, I think they beat us by like 9 or 10 the first time. That won't be a good sign. I think then that means, you know, I'm not sure what that will mean. I'll break that down or digest that when it happens. But yeah, that's my progress report on the Mavs. I think I covered everything. And then let's go a little off progress report and just talk about some of the more long-term things off the court, mainly contracts. I've talked about this before, but we got to move Bertans' contract a little somehow. Bertans, I'd even be willing to trade Hardaway. I know that sounds crazy, but if we can get another guard who can score, again, I think we should make a trade for Kyrie. Worst case scenario, we send him home if things go sideways. And, you know, we clear up 35 million in cap space for next year. We move a couple bad contracts. And we set ourselves up for the future. I think right now that's where we're stuck, is the future's looking a little tough for the Mavs, I'll be honest, contract-wise. You know, obviously Luka's locked up. We have some nice pieces around him, but we are one more all-star away from, I think, being pushed over the top. And whether that means clearing cap space or trying to go get somebody, which, again, I don't think we really have much to offer to go get another all-star with what we are wanting or needing to get rid of. So the thing with the Kyrie trade is just more of a risk, reward, and value kind of thing. That's just my 2 cents. I made a video on it, so I won't rehash it too much. But, you know, the Mavs need to somehow find a way to clear some cap space with Bertans, preferably. If we can get a guy on a 1-year deal that clears it at the end of this year or something. That doesn't really have anything to do with my progress report, but that is always going to be looming over our heads for the next year and next year as well until those guys are off the payroll. So that is my progress report video. I know it was kind of longer than I thought it'd be. So if you guys watched all the way to the end, I appreciate it. And I'll see you all tonight against Milwaukee.